sculpture in motion.
In two words, would be motorcycle art.
A machine created by the Michelangelo of motorcycles.
If well designed, even a single piece of steel has a soul of its own.
A motorcycle with one of the most powerful engines ever created. A design that's constantly being refined in the search for just a little more horsepower.
2, 3. 3, okay, fine. It's what we wanted.
A sport bike owing its existence to the patriarch of Italian motorcycles.
When you ride the MV AGUSTA, you're riding a bike of passion, a bike of legends.
A legend first created by a royal Italian family. A legend that had passed into oblivion until a second Italian family took on the challenge of bringing the brand back to life. Why? Because this legend has always been based on a true love for motorcycles. Machines that are uniquely Italian, living, breathing works of art which carry the name MV AGUSTA. There is a timeless beauty to the northern Italian province of Varese. It is famous for the Sacro Monte di Varese, a place of pilgrimage and worship dating back to the year 1472. Today, the Sacro Monte lies in a national park, a designated historic treasure of the world. Varese is a place where tradition runs as deep as the rivers and lakes fed by the glacial waters from the Alps. Tradition that includes a unique connection between two Italian families and one remarkable motorcycle brand, MV AGUSTA. It is a tradition that began when a royal family decided to use its wealth and power to pursue its passion for motorcycles. The MV AGUSTA F4 312 is one of the kings of modern motorcycles. It is a bike that can trace its lineage all the way back to a Sicilian prince. That prince was Count Giovanni Augusta, who became famous as a pioneer of Italian aviation. He first flew in 1907, began building airplanes in 1923, and today the aviation company he created is still a major Italian helicopter manufacturer. But aviation wasn't enough for Count Augusta's sons, especially his son Domenico, who risked much of the family fortune to create a motorcycle company called MV AGUSTA. The M referring to Mechanica, Italian for mechanical, and V for Vergara, the northern Italian town where the company was born. The very first MV AGUSTA motorcycle was shown to the public in the fall of 1945. It was called the Vespa 98. Domenico Augusta didn't know that the name Vespa had already been registered by an Italian scooter company. And even though Domenico was now himself an Italian count, he was forced to change the name of his first motorcycle. The first MV AGUSTA was simply called the 98. determined to make a name for his new company, Count Domenico wasted no time in taking MV to the races.
Se lei considera quello che ha fatto la MV Agusta in 25 anni,
in the first 25 years that the Augusta family built motorcycles, to this day, no one has ever gotten close to the number of victories and successes the family had with the MV Agusta brand and their motorcycles.
MV's racing success was remarkable. Between 1952 and 1973, the company won 63 world championships. While the Augusta family continued to make money from its aviation division, racing motorcycles was its passion. It was a passion reflected by perhaps the greatest rider of all time, Giacomo Agostini. Starting in 1966, Agostini would capture 7 straight world championship titles, crystallizing the idea that if you wanted to be considered a world-class racer, you had to ride an MV Agusta.
Count Augusta was a little bit crazy. When there was a race, he would stop the assembly line for the helicopters at the last minute so all his engineers could focus on motorcycles and make sure the race bikes were finished in time for the races.
But with the death of Count Domenico in 1971, the company began to flounder. Augusta Aviation was still in business, but by 1975, MV Agusta was no longer making motorcycles. After 30 years in business, the MV Agusta factory is closed. The remarkable MV brand is officially dead. But MV Agusta is far from forgotten. What had been a family motorcycle company is bought by a second Italian family that also shares a love for motorcycles. In 1991, Claudio Castiglione and his son, Giovanni, buy the rights to the MV Agusta name. But can they bring a fabled brand that's been dead for more than 30 years back to life?
My ultimate goal was to make sure that when I brought back the MV Agusta brand, I brought it back with all the glory of the technology and the race history that represents MV Agusta. My goal was to leave people speechless.
Like father, like son. Giovanni Castiglione shares his father's passion for the MV brand. He understands the tradition of MVs as motorcycle art, but art that should be ridden and not simply put on display in the living room.
Our bikes are not a bike for the living room. They look like a bike from the living room, like a piece of art, a sculpture, but if you go on a racetrack, it's the fastest. If you go for a weekend, probably it's one of the most fun to drive bikes.
To bring the MV brand back to life, Claudio Castiglione turns to an old friend. His name, Massimo Tamburini, and he is one of the greatest motorcycle designers in the world. It's rare that the fate of an entire company is put into one man's hands. But Tamburini was up to the challenge, in part because his love of motorcycles has been a lifelong obsession.